Israel in Chandler, Arizona. Hey, Israel, what's up?
Good morning, Tom. I've been consuming the news just as you and everybody else over the last few days and everything. And one of the things that I always like to do is just kind of, once I've consumed in what's going on in these 2 days, is start drawing a line going backwards and see how this ties to other things. And I think you've talked a lot about that in terms of going back to 9/11, our reaction to that and what we did in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Once in a while, I like to take what I call a 30,000-foot view. And I think that all of this goes all the way back to the beginning of this country. Number one, the ink wasn't dry on our Constitution when we were already behaving like an empire, pushing west, pushing native populations out, massacring them. And that has continued on and on and on. And there are very, very few instances where we really needed to go to war. Pearl Harbor is one indication for me. But most other times, and especially in our lifetime, I can't think of a single war that we have gone to that we needed to for the security of our country. Yep. And I think that until we come to terms with the fact that we've been behaving like an empire, well, as long as we continue to do that, our democracy is in peril. One thing is tied to another in my mind.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, Israel. I would fine-tune it a little bit and maybe even take it a step farther than what you're saying. Because the great lesson, if you look at how, for example, the British Empire functioned from the 1700s to the mid-20th century, or how for that matter, how the French or the Dutch or the Portuguese empires functioned when they were empires, or the Roman Empire, for that matter. Yes, they would invade other countries, but they would very quickly create essentially collaborative agreements with those countries. We will build roads in India, the British said. If in exchange you will pick cotton and send the cotton to England to be made into clothing. They integrated their economies with the countries that they had conquered. The countries adopted their language. When I worked in Uganda, people were no longer speaking Bantu. They were speaking English, right? It was an English colony. The same in India. There's over 700 languages in India, but the dominant one is English because it was dominated by the United Kingdom for so long. So, even the countries that have behaved as empires historically have not done it as stupidly as we did in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq.
Correct. I agree. Yeah.
And I think that, just being an empire is really out of fashion. I mean, it just, in the 21st century, it doesn't work. It hasn't, and frankly, I don't think it worked in the 20th century. This is stuff that should have been left behind in the 19th century and before. And frankly, I mean, you could argue very strongly it never should have happened at all.
Yes.
But for all practical purposes, it's just like not even possible anymore. And then we get to these definitional things. What is an act of war? What does war mean? Why are we engaged in military conflicts without a congressional declaration of war? The last one we had was World War II, and we've been involved in all kinds of these things. Another guy, I need to go back and edit my op-ed from yesterday. Another time we were lied into war was Ronald Reagan in Grenada. I mean, that war lasted, 2 days? But, it was like Reagan said, oh, my God, they're coming for the students, the American students at the medical school in Grenada. Who is they? Well, it was, I'm forgetting his name now, but, the president of that country was, of Grenada was like, we're going to have a national health care system for everybody in the country, and we're going to institute national unionization, and Reagan said, that's communism, you can't have that. That's what he was trying to save the students from. And I mean, it's like, this is nuts. Anyhow, Israel.
I think if I could just one quick thought, I think how we come to terms with our history and how that determines us moving forward will go a long way towards whether or not we are a Britain, meaning we realize we can't control this empire and establish a relationship, as you've indicated, with the countries, with other countries around the world, or we disappear like the Roman Empire did, overcome by peoples from other lands. Yeah. And, those are the choices before us.
I think you're absolutely right. And let us not forget that when the Roman Empire collapsed, it was bloody, it was horrible, it lasted generations, it was a god-awful mess, and we don't want that here.